limestone formation. And right here you have one of the large gastropods in situ in the Rogers City limestone, where it's eroding away from the exposure on the beach. This is what I came for. This is one of the gastropods in uneroded fresh matrix, and you can see the recalcified shell is still intact, and most of the thing is still in the rock, in the matrix, which, if you want to see the external features of the snail for identification, you want to have. And so this is what will be taken back to the laboratory and carefully prepped, and that shell will probably have to be consolidated as the matrix is removed, so it isn't damaged, and then we'll be able to see the fine exterior details of the shell. This is Rockport Quarry. I think it was originally like Kelly's Island Lime and Stone Company or something like that back in the 30s or 40s. And it's the type locality of the Rockport Quarry Limestone Formation, which has a lot of limestone that's rich in bituminous parting, so it's black and a lot of organic material. And this is a really good site for hexagonaria corals, commonly referred to as Petoskey stone, and lots of brachiopods, lots of very large horn corals, tons of favositid corals, occasional trilobites, and fish armor, which isn't terribly uncommon. Bits of fish armor which tend to be sort of blue in color, which is one way you can spot them as you're walking around. You can see how dark the limestone is in this Middle Devonian Rockport Quarry Formation. And here you see a farm fresh Petoskey stone, not eroded by the waves. And here's a broken surface of it. And in the same rock are examples of favositid coral that's very commonly found here, in some cases in thick layers. Another very common fossil here is stromatoporoids. Here you can see the characteristic layering of this, essentially a sponge. And to verify that it's a stromatoporoid, or some people say stromatoporoid, is to under a microscope you might see it in this raw form, but I like to cut them with a saw, and you look for pillar-like structures within the layers. That's one characteristic that would separate a stromatoporoid from, say, a stromatolite. And we should be able to find some. So this is a broken section. We should be able to find some better ones where the outer surface is exposed, where you can see the bumps or mamelons, and you can usually get fist size or even basketball size ones where the entire outer surface is exposed. Here's another nice big chunk of hexagonaria. Certainly not the biggest chunk you'll find in here. Some of them are actually quite large. This one's about the size of a cinder block. You come across a couple of horn corals here, and while occasionally you'll get them fully inflated, this site's a little bit unusual with regard to horn coral or solitary rugose corals, as many if not most of them are compressed or flattened. Not very three-dimensional, not very inflated, and most of them have a sort of white color which strongly contrasts with the dark limestone. You can see some other fossils in this block, including some more favicitted corals and what looks to be a highly eroded spiriferid brachiopod here. Here's another horn coral, and to the right of it a one showing the corallite and the septa. Couple of old railroad spikes from the old narrow gauge railroad that went through here to cart out the ore or the limestone. Here's a nice big horn coral. You can see again that contrasting white against the dark matrix. And that one's somewhat inflated, but I've seen them, you know, compressed to about that thick also. Here you can see sort of what they mean by the bituminous partings. You can see all of this brown, black, organic material that in the rock will split along those bedding planes. And when you break them open fresh, it sort of has a petroleum-like smell. There's kind of a neat, well-defined head of hexagonaria. Here's a nice little cross-section of the Middle Devonian seafloor. You can see all kinds of cross-sections of horn corals in there. And I think this one might be something like Cystophiloides or something like that. It's comprised entirely of decephaments with no primary septa. Here's a nice big colony of favicitted coral. Stretches from each side of that rock there. When you enter the quarry from the parking lot via the service road, so you're looking across the quarry there to there's some sinkholes down that way. Off to your right, there are piles of a light bluish gray material, and that is spoil from the Bell Shale, B-E-L-L. And this is really good for smaller fossils, brachiopods, crinoid columnals, bryozoans, etc. Small corals. Let's see if we can go over and see what's there quick. So here's just a quick example of some of the things that you can find on the surface here. So there's a crinoid columnal, brachiopod. This would be a bryozoan branch. And there's just all kinds of different species of brachiopods in here. You just have to get on your hands and knees and crawl around because a lot of the material in here is very tiny. This site exposes rocks from the Middle Devonian Thunder Bay formation and is unusually rich in blastoids and crinoid calyxes. Here's a large bryozoan colony here in the Thunder Bay formation, and a bunch of rubble that's been ripped up from the actual exposure by waves and ice. And so looking in these gravels is where you can find the crinoid calyxes and blastoids and crinoid stems and things. But it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. There's also your usual assortment of other fossils, including brachiopods, crinoid columnals, corals, fenestrate bryozoans. I've also found even trilobites here. I found a proated trilobite here one year. Horn corals are also common. Solitary rugose corals. Well, it doesn't look like much, and it really isn't, because it's not a nice complete specimen, but this is I'm pretty sure is a fragment of a crinoid calyx. This needs to be cleaned off, but this is one of the larger ones, probably genus Magistocrinus. This is a fossil park at in Rogers City. It's at South Shore Park, and they bring quarried materials here from the calcite quarry here in Rogers City, which is, from what I understand, the largest limestone quarry in the world. And so they have a little kiosk here indicating what fossils you may find. Unfortunately, I don't know that it's going to tell us what geologic formations might be represented here, but one can figure that out. There's part of the processing plant for the calcite quarry. Looks like they're running aggregate right now. This is 40 Mile Point Lighthouse, north of Rogers City. And the lighthouse is right over there. And I'm collecting rocks and minerals from Michigan for a display, and ended up finding this really nice pudding stone, which is a metaconglomerate. So it's a conglomerate probably from river deposits that's been slightly metamorphosed, and particles have been partly fused together. And I think it originates in Canada. It's really abundant on Drummond Island, and then all over Michigan and even into northern Indiana brought by the glaciers. The white class are quartz. The matrix is quartzite because it's particles that have been fused together. And then the various colors you see are jasper, red, and purple, and so on. And it gets its name pudding stone because I think it goes back to English, which thought it looked sort of like some kind of a plum pudding. This one is called a Gaugandatillite. It also originates, the outcrop is in Canada, and these fragments are brought by the glaciers. But this is a conglomerate, and it's an extremely old rock. So this dates somewhere between about 2.2 billion and I think 2.4 or 5 billion years old. And it's thought to be potentially a result of glacial activity, but it's granite clasts in there, and I'm not sure what the matrix is made of.